Sweeney. Dwayne Sweeney. Sweeney's over.
Can you please hand it over to your captain, Dwayne Sweeney?
Welcome to Real Tales with Sweens, proudly brought to you by Fish City Hamilton. Fish City has been servicing the Waikato's fishing, boating and outdoor needs for over 30 years. And now, with the help of their online store, their great range of products and outstanding customer service is available across New Zealand. This episode, I sit down with Tom Martin. As you'll hear during this podcast, Tom is a very well balanced and self-aware individual, especially considering he is only 23 years of age. We cover a range of topics such as how his frustration in a rugby changing room pre-game led to his world's first multi-tool for rugby and football players. We also discuss the mental health challenges of having back-to-back ACL injuries, how he fuels his creative side, and how passionate he is to be equally successful in both rugby and his engineering career. As always, the show notes will be available on the Real Tales with Sweens Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as the website realtaleswithsweens.com. Good George have a 15% discount available for all you listeners. Just use the discount code REALTALES before checking out of their online store. Lastly, I want to say a special thank you to Tom for giving up your time, mate. It was awesome to hear and help you share your tale. Wish you all the best with your new venture with Vital. So join me as we get to know Tom Martin. Enjoy the podcast. All right, well, we might as well crack on in. Tom Martin, welcome to Real Tales with Sweens.
No, it's good to have you. Good to be here. Sweens, no, it's awesome.
Yeah, first time on the podcast too. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, first time. No, I'm honoured to be on yours and catch up on the weekend. It was pretty cool for you to invite me on, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, it was cool. So Tom, me and Tom have, I guess, we've crossed paths quite a bit, I suppose, over the last, since I was working with your old man, and you went to my old high school. Yep, and then you became a mighty Mulu man. Do you know your number?
Yeah, 1228. Don't quote me, but pretty sure that's stuck out. Taranaki, Bay of Plenty, 2021.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's the year that the Mulus won too, right?
It was, it was a tricky old year.
It was a COVID year, when you boys ended up being based in Tauranga? Yeah,
based in Tauranga, so we were kind of hopping around the borders as a group and kind of staying as a team in each spot, kind of cat and mouse type thing with COVID. Yeah. But I was grateful that we got to play a few games, and it meant that I could jump on the field. So.
Yeah. Well, I talked to a number of players that were in that team, and it was quite a unique situation. And then obviously because I coach the team now, and a lot of those boys are still involved, obviously. Yeah. But it's quite a unique situation, and it probably helped the team get the results that year. Just talking to Floss, and obviously he was personally going through a lot of adversity at the time with his back. And hearing some of the stories of how he was physically, and then also trying to balance that with being head coach of a team that none of his players were able to go home, and being based in a hotel there in Tauranga and playing home games in Rotorua and all sorts of places.
Yeah, I think it brought us together, the general consensus is that it just kind of brought us all so much closer. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have kids and family that I was missing, so much compared to some of the guys. But it meant, even rooming with someone for 6 weeks compared to 2 nights, you know what I mean? You do get to know each other real well. And then training and playing in places we weren't used to, sticking together meant that we could achieve whatever we wanted to, and obviously went on to win the whole lot. But we learned a heck of a lot about each other, and I think we all probably look back at it and think, it was pretty awesome year.
Yeah, and it was a pretty young group too, to be fair. There wasn't a lot of old heads. There's some guys that had some experience, like Aiden and Mitch and stuff, but again, I think Mitch is only 27 now. Yeah, no, it's going back 2 years ago, so he was 25.
It was an interesting group. We even have a few call-ins, from outside the region that never played for
Oh,
no
that's
lose
right.
before.
Yeah.
So triple T in the final.
Yeah.
Guys like that kind of fill in the gaps. A few exemptions, I think, but no, it was awesome, and it was just cool to meet, everyone properly. I think we really clicked early on, made some really awesome friendships.
And I think for like a first year player in the team, it's probably, and especially when you don't have those, I guess, extra responsibilities outside of the game in terms of like a family and a wife and kids, like being able to actually immerse yourself fully into footy that's kind of where you get that real growth. Like I often talk about guys that have had the opportunity to play professionally, like the reason they're good is because they get to do it every day. There's so many talented Kiwis out there that are talented rugby players given the opportunity, and if they took the most of the opportunity, some don't, but the ones that do, by applying themselves on a daily, like that's where you get that real growth. So to have that in your like first year, that I guess that immersion into being fully professional in a semi-professional environment, which NPC is. Yeah,
it was awesome. Yeah, like you said, to get immersed straight away, and saying that, like, it's always been about balance as well for me, and it meant that I could fully focus on footy then and there. But yeah, juggling the uni as well was also.
Were you still studying at that time?
It kept me real busy because we were full rugby mode, And when we weren't rugby mode, because we were at the Mount a lot of the time, the boys would be playing golf and surfing, which was, kind of what we wanted to do. But there was a few of us that were studying as well, and that was its own kind of beast because I was away from Victoria University, where I was actually doing all my papers through, and studying industrial design, which was a super hands-on kind of course. The first 2 years spent a lot of time in the workshop with 3D printers and laser cutting machines and all that kind of thing. So being removed from that kind of provided its own challenges. Kind of moved online, so we had to get creative with how everything worked and presenting bodies of work away from the office. So I was down in the cafe on our days off at the Trinity Wharf with a few other guys, and
studying
smashing
away,
it out.
working
away, a few coffees and cards and study in between. That's kind of how I spent most of the time in that isolation outside of the training and playing.
So the reason you were up and involved with Waikato, was that just because of the opportunity? Was that like a negotiated situation with the university because of your rugby career?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. When I left school, Waikato was always, where I wanted to play, and design was always what I wanted to do. So I knew that going to Wellington was going to give me the best design education that I needed to move forward in that career. So I presented Waikato with the proposed idea of, signing with Waikato to play for them, but also go down and actually study, immerse myself in Victoria University, and then come back when they needed me. So I came back for under-19 campaign, and then it ended up being kind of NPC campaign after that, and then onwards. So I ended up doing mainly half a year in Wellington, then half a year in Hamilton.
Oh yeah,
most years, and it was awesome. It definitely came with its own challenges. And I don't think anyone had actually done that before. I for sure probably missed a few maybe opportunities around being in an academy group, but I'd been in a pre-academy for a long time.
You would have some good habits in place.
I actually look back now and think that going down to Wellington and learning to train by myself, I was getting sent programs, I was doing everything by myself. That actually was huge for me. I learned, how to organise myself and be independent with my training and progression, accountability and all those things that I'd, started to learn throughout Hamilton Boys, but I think when you're out of that school space, that was huge. Testing at times for sure. And coming back into like the 19s campaign or NPC campaigns, well, it was a tricky transition sometimes, but I really enjoyed that balance, like I mentioned before, which is so important to me. And I met so many mates at uni that I wouldn't have if I didn't go, or if I lived at home. So
well, it's interesting you say that about I guess those lessons that you learnt from training remotely, because I often, now that I'm in the position that I coach at NPC level, is I think that more players should do what you went through, because the academy system now is very, like, the resource is amazing, like compared to what I went through. And I'm not just saying that kids should do what you did or what I did, because that's what I did, but it's those lessons that were taught along that way that you, not taught, but like self-learned. And the ability to find a way to do something when you really don't want to, and it only falls on you. Where I feel the academy system currently is a lot of holding hands and they're kind of walking the players right through the whole process, where you can, the pre-academy is a great tool for that, to get them to a certain point. Now it's like, well, okay, we could chuck your big boy pants on, how much do you want it? And that's something that Floss says a lot, because it's a Jamie Joseph line from back in the day. It's like, how much you want it? Like, show me. And I think a lot about that kind of era that I was in, because I was in basically the first year academy went proper. So I think that was like 2003. So the academy prior to me being in it was a quarterly fitness test that you did, and that was about it. And the access to be able to train at a gym, but all self-directed. And then you just test. And then when I came into the academy, became a structured week. So we would have, weights twice a week and conditioning once. And then once you got into club season, conditioning kind of fell on your own. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. The gym stayed pretty consistent. We probably lift twice a week from memory, maybe a Monday and a Wednesday. Can't remember the exact days, but that was early morning, so we could go to study and work and whatever, which like it is now, but now it's like constant. Those kids are getting, and there was other stuff we had to do outside of that, and then more players now are removed from club trainings to high performance train. It's like, well, is that really? I don't see. Like, I understand that from a coaching aspect in terms of being able to upskill, etc., for the way you want to play. But there's still got to be an element of the players got to show you that they want it, versus like, oh, what are you going to, there's a lot of nows from the players, like, what are you going to give me? Like, how much opportunity am I going to get straight away, right before actually walking through the door or proving a point in training or performance outside of the environment. So, and I think you mentioned Boys High there, but I went through Boys High as well, and a very different Boys High to you did with the rugby program. But the school taught me a lot of really good habits, more so than the rugby. And I think that's what makes people. People talk about Hamilton Boys High School and the rugby circles. It's really well known, but I have some amazing memories from that school and some really good personal traits that I can hold, sort of really dear to me that I learnt through that school. They got nothing to do with rugby.
For sure. Well, you're definitely only, one fish in a pretty big pond, and I think that was probably the essence of driving that competitive kind of edge, learning to push yourself, without anyone else telling you how to do that. Like, it was just a natural kind of, if you wanted it, you could get it, but you had to put the head down. So that definitely flowed into, I suppose, me questioning, why should I have to play for where I live, and can I play for who I want to play for, and for where I'm from. So I really pushed that, and I'm grateful for Waikato leading me, and supporting me, really, because it's meant now, not only as a loose forward, I've let my body develop. I think it's been massive, but also come out of the last 4 years with a degree, and also, still put on the jersey of the team I've always wanted to. So
It's pretty cool. Like, and it's quite refreshing to hear somebody that, like you went and presented, like, this is what I want to do. And obviously was calculated and thought about and clearly laid out of how it was going to be. And then for somebody of what, you would have been 18 at that time?
Yeah, 18.
And for them, like, obviously it's never been done before, because I feel like athletes are generally pretty narrow-minded, and it's like, that's what I want to do. But you've mentioned the word balance quite a bit already, but that, like, clearly, and that's something I do want to talk about, is like the other side of you in terms of like the non-rugby aspect and the engineering degree that you did, because I know your old man's very creative, and he actually designed my logos for the podcast. So
it's funny.
Has that sort of been? Have you always had that sort of curiosity to? Well, I think of creative minds as people that are really curious and they want to work out like how things work. How can I make that better? Yeah. Have you always kind of been like that?
Always, I think always, So it's crazy. My mind's going even now, probably like with what I could do to solve problems around me, which I just love. I love having that busy mind. Like, it's something I can't really turn off, but I enjoy it, and I've tried to channel that into work and study as best I can. So right since I was little, I mean,
it's an awesome trait for rugby too, actually.
Yeah, I think even I'm really involved around like the line-out space at club rugby and enjoying a bit of coaching and stuff at high school level too. And I think the line-out is almost like a creative like canvas almost. So I expect some interesting moves next year.
Nice.
On the club comp.
I look forward to that.
But no, it's been awesome. I think growing up around creatives, because I'm a big believer in everyone's born creative. I think, everyone's drawing when they're a baby, or scribbling on the wall, or whatever it might be, playing with Lego. It's an interesting topic, but I believe that everyone's kind of born creative, and then whether you fuel that or not, it kind of is how you grow up.
Makes sense.
And I've managed to keep fueling it, I guess. So my granddad was a artist and a painter. My dad, like you mentioned, was a graphic designer. Is a graphic designer. And my mum was an art teacher. So I've always been around painting and art. We actually had a gallery on our bottom floor of one of our old houses I grew up in. But it's always been part of us, part of our family. So they've always been, they haven't really been pushing me to do it or anything, but it's just always been there, I suppose, and accessible, and I can see like what creative work can bring. And at the end of the day, it's good fun. And I enjoy creating. So right throughout high school, even then I was asking the questions, do I have to do English or can I do art history? So I didn't do English, I did art history. Just because I just loved it. It was so much better and more interesting for me. And not everyone's the same, but for me it was just, this is how I'm going to get through high school. I did, design, painting and art history scholarship right through year 13, and that was the core of my study. And then I just trained and played. So that's kind of when it all started, probably at high school, properly, putting it into, assignment work and projects.
It's interesting, Like I often talk about school, and it's like school's not for everybody, but it is. I feel like it is if you're allowed to mold it to how you want it or what you're interested in, which. To me, listening to what you said there, it's like, I don't want to do English, I want to do art history, because that fuels you, and that if you're, like, I'm real bad at this, like, if I am into something, I'm all in, that's why I was good at rugby, just because I applied myself so much, and, you talk about that problem solve or the creativity, how everyone's born with it. For me, that's how I express my creativity, and like around movement and manipulation, body shape, all that kind of stuff. I got a real kick out of working somebody over on the rugby field, making them get inside their head, like I would love to have been a lock purely because I could do the line out.
Yeah.
Because that to me like is exciting. Where like most backs look at that and go, that's boring. It looks like, but it actually isn't. The manipulation aspect of it, because that's what I enjoyed about rugby. It was the manipulation and like a backline working together or a team working together to come up with a strategy to outdo the opposition rather than physical feats. I wasn't so like, if I made a line break and scored a try, I'd be like, that was cool. But if we manipulated something to make the opposition think we're going to do something else, and then we scored, that really lit my fire.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess, my creative, how I sort of applied my creative mind. But I did that through high school too, but it wasn't rewarded.
Yeah.
Well, it was rewarded in selections outside of school, but it wasn't like, I was quite often like in trouble at school because I was trying to weasel out of stuff so I could go practice my kicking or go for a run or go to the gym or whatever, because that was what I wanted to do. That was my driving kind of force. I don't know how many teachers told me you're never going to play pro rugby. Like you need to study more and X, Y, Z. And then those same teachers were like, I enjoyed watching your game on the weekend.
And now they're all it's like you mentioned, the Hamilton boys, that would have kind of brought the best rugby side out of you as well. It was just so much internal competition. Like I went from Morrinsville Primary to Morrinsville Intermediate, and then got my first taste of like rep rugby then, so played Roland Mills and Waikato primary schools and that was good for going to Boys High because there was a number of those Waikato primary schools boys that were attending Boys High. So when I went there, it was only me and one other kid from Morrinsville in my year that went to a school of, I think at the time might have been 1,250 students. So coming from a school of, I don't know, like 120 or my primary school was probably a bit bigger, maybe 200 or 300 students when I was there, but to walk into a school like that and you only know one person, only one kid from your town's going there with you. It was pretty like daunting, but to have those kind of rugby connections of already there kind of formed a bit of a kind of social click to start with. But one thing I did want to ask you about but when I was at Boys High, what I noticed is that there was no real social cliques. Like we didn't, it was very common for us to hang out as a whole year group. Like it was crazy. And I don't know why, but it just felt natural and normal for all of us. And, I had friends that were nerds and friends that were soccer players. And that was kind of where a lot of my other friends that went to different schools, it didn't seem to be like that. They had their, they hang out on their kind of, their sort of social norm, whether it was art or, sport or whatever. That was kind of how they sort of gravitated. But was it like that for you when you're at school? School's a lot bigger now though, than when I was there too. It was massive, and it was an interesting few years just because I kind of went in and out of, I suppose, year 11 and 12, I was reasonably social.
Yeah.
And then I was head boy in year 13, so it meant that all my lunchtimes and intervals, I didn't spend any time, I didn't go out, in the weekend or anything. I was head down and I was just so flat out, and I didn't realise how, committed I was to school and how disconnected I was from my mates until the end of the year. And that kind of also fueled that whole, I need to go to university.
Oh, yeah.
And actually have, make some friends, and really enjoy friendships.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I've got a really small kind of close group now of ex-Hamilton boys guys, but I'm fortunate enough that got to know them all through that year 13 year, which was quite cool in a way as well.
Yeah.
So I think that year group was quite strong.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got quite a select kind of few that I've still remained like best mates with, which is quite cool too. So you kind of got the best of both. Yeah. Yeah.
It must be a hell of a lot of responsibility being head boy of that school.
Oh, it was... Yeah, I
wasn't even a prefect, so...
You were out practicing your kicks?
Yeah.
No, I mean, the art was time intensive. So with, first 15 commitments, it was a balance. It was testing, and a few times it was probably quite overwhelming for me, and I didn't
Yeah.
know how to deal with that. There's a big responsibility, I think, because the pressure to do well, especially as a rugby player there, I think can kind of outweigh the rest sometimes. So I think remaining level and actually wanting to give it all with my design as well was probably the trickiest part.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that challenge. Yeah. And I think I'm still, playing with that balance now. And I probably will for the next however long I'm playing footy, which is cool. I love that. It's the challenge of just giving it all in both without burning out in either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I quite like, it's interesting you say that about giving it all, like in the school in that year 13, and that little bit of realization to be like, oh no, okay, I need to make sure I go to uni, and I need to have that kind of disconnected element, make some new friends, etc. It sounded very similar for me in like my journey with rugby. So like obviously I went started super young, played first game for Waikato when I was at school, then played a handful of games, like 4 games I think my first year out, and then like pretty similar next year, and then kind of all the wheels just went in motion and it went fucking super fast, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here now talking to you and I'm 39. But like there was a little patch there from like sort of out of school where I was still kind of associated a good core group of friends from home. Probably spent more time with my friends from my like hometown more than I did with my boys high kind of mates. I'm still really close with all my boys high mates, but not as close as I guess the mates I kind of grew up with. And I think being away from them for 5 years in a schooling aspect kind of made me miss them, which made me realise how much they meant to me. And probably because I missed them, I made a little bit extra effort. And then, naturally in those kind of formative years, we built all our really strong relationships. And then I got to, I think, it was when I was around like 20, 21, that kind of age is when it all started to really kick off. So made New Zealand Colts, then went to a World Cup, then come back and straight in, made New Zealand Sevens, did a World Series circuit, and then boom, Waikato win the NPC, boom, I'm playing Super Rugby. And it was like a whirlwind, like 2 years, and it was just full noise, and I was rugby, and that was it. That's what I was going to do. I'm going to be an All Black. I'm head down, bum up, train all the time. And I remember a really good mate of mine, it was around that time I just made Super Rugby, and it might have even been in pre-season maybe, and we're training full noise, and they were actually going overseas, and they're having a flat leaving party, and I kind of was like, I knew they're going for a while, and I was just sort of like, I'll get around to it, I'll go and see them, and then eventually the day of the party come, and we're training next day, and so I was like, oh no, I won't drink, and then so I like sort of held off going for a while because I knew that I'd get like pressured into drinking. So I was like, I'll wait till later when they're drunk and they won't notice. And then I got there, and my mate, who ended up being one of my groomsmen at my wedding, like Norm's good bastard, and he like pulled me aside and he goes, bro, why are you such a fucking dick now? And it was like that one statement that he made, and I remember it clear as day. I can close my eyes and put myself right there, standing on the front lawn in front of his flat. And I was like, what? And he's like, bro, you got no fucking time for us anymore. It's all about rugby. And then from there, it was like a light bulb moment. And I didn't just like send it and get on the piss that night, but it was like a conscious shift in my mindset to be like, okay, like, is this really healthy, what I'm doing? And they were off overseas in a couple of days anyway, so that kind of happened, and I kind of sat with that for a bit and got into my first season of Super Rugby, and it was all exciting and awesome, made New Zealand Maldives, and I was just like, but I really got what he meant, and for me, I kind of sort of the end of that year, kind of re-grounded myself. He actually cut his OE short because his missus broke up with him, so he came home, and all this, there's a lot of drama sort of went on that we all sort of laughed at because that's Norm and that's what he's like. But once he sort of come back, it was actually quite good because the others kind of left. A group of them went, and then he came back pretty early, and then one of the other boys had to come back because his grandfather passed away, and then he went again. The one that grandfather passed away, and then the other group of mates all left because they were all meant to meet up there. and Norm just wasn't kind of feeling it. So me and him actually spent quite a bit of time together through that period, and it really grounded like me again. And then it kind of, from that point on, right throughout my career, I kept a really good balance of disconnecting myself from the rugby environment, and all my time spent outside of rugby was never really with the rugby boys. So I see now it's quite unhealthy, like just from my personal opinion, because they do everything together, and like they're golfing. You see, you look at social media, like they live in each other's pockets. They all flat together. They all go play golf, and it's awesome while you're doing it, and you are best of mates. But what I learned once the career finished is like the train keeps going. Like everyone's like, oh, you know, you still keep in touch with everybody. It doesn't. Rugby's too fast, and if you're still in it, you ain't got time for the guys that aren't in it anymore. So it's making sure you've got a good balance across both.
Yeah. Now, flatting in Wellington, that was part of the driving force really for me as well, to hang around, because I enjoyed it so much. To actually live with an eclectic bunch of interesting individuals.
Were they all doing the same degree as you, or like just
just
mixed?
a bit of everything. So my good mate Josh from Hamilton kind of was the only one from Hamilton really that was in the whole group. And we had all sorts. One guy was studying film. Zach was studying film, and then Zeb was doing his thing, marketing, and we had all sorts going on. Bob was he's now a vetting officer, but it's just having different chats. We always connected. We always connect on kind of like film and TV, which is quite cool. So film, TV, and music. Those are like the three. We just
constants.
Loved it. So that was underlying kind of, I suppose, interests and footy and all that kind of thing as well. But it's just so refreshing to get off training and then talk about something different. I think the last thing I'd want to be talking about is more lineouts, probably. But no, it's good. I think everyone needs to experience it if they haven't. And some people do like, full noise rugby all the time, which is fine. But I think staying close to mates outside of the game keeps you probably playing at your best.
Well, that's what I put down to the longevity in my career. I reckon. Like I think I definitely could have easily done it the other way too, but I just don't think I would have done it for as long. Like the amount of mental attrition that you go through, like on a daily basis. Like if you don't disconnect from that, there's so much internal and external pressure. But being able to go to a group of people that don't give a fuck whether you play good or bad, like, is actually really refreshing. And it's just like, and you would have had a really big, and Norm's classic, like I'm sure he still doesn't even know the rules of rugby, but we'd kind of finish and I would have played shit. And he's like, mean game, bro. But he genuinely means it. Like he's not taking the piss. He's like, mean game, bro. And I was just like, well, it wasn't really. And he's like, oh, wasn't it? And I was like, nah. And he's like, oh, I thought it was all right. And I was like, no, it wasn't. He's like, oh, okay, sweet as. Like, so and that's kind of it. But you have a little giggle and carry on.
Some of them are similar. A couple of them didn't even watch much rugby before they kind of met me. So they were the biggest fans because they just thought everything was good. Which was good. But then you've got other mates that are like your biggest critics, but in a funny way, and you kind of always looking to prove and please them, I guess. So you don't get as much stick. Because so with the going back to the creative aspect and going to Wellington, was there a clear direction you wanted? So mum's an art teacher, dad's a graphic designer, and you are, what's your... I'm an industrial designer.
Industrial designer. So you make stuff.
I make stuff.
Your dad makes pictures and your mum draws pictures, right?
Pretty much.
Is that how it works?
Dad, the way I describe it probably is, dad, graphic design's 2D, so anything that's flat. Posters, logos, anything like that. And then your product or industrial design, anything 3D really. Which is a massive range. And I kind of thought throughout school I was going to do architecture. I was always really keen to do architecture. And I still, there's a part of me that wants to go back and do it, or...
Is it a different degree?
It is a different degree, but Well, part of me that wants to build on what I've done.
Yeah.
Something along the lines of what I've done. But yeah, I'm not sure yet. But I kind of thought, with the state of kind of technology at the moment in the world, leaving school, the 3D software, 3D printing was all just starting to kick off. And I felt I could pick. Well, Dad had already kind of taught me a lot of the graphic design skills that you needed.
Yeah.
So by 18, I was sweet on Adobe,
Yeah.
like Photoshop, Illustrator. I kind of felt that would just naturally progress, and I wouldn't actually need to study.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to university to push the boat out a bit and actually go down a different route that I'd never even really heard of or done at school. So industrial design, so the product design space, modelling, 3D work along, CAD, 3D printing, which covers a wide range of things. So industrial designers would mainly work on kind of the aesthetic of a product.
Yeah.
So, and the form and function of a product. So everything from kind of cars, furniture, lights, right through to appliances, shoes, footwear, clothing, I guess, to an extent. Kind of anything tangible in 3D, I suppose, would be touched at some point by an industrial designer. So
That's cool.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a massive scope. And everyone's kind of heads off after university and goes down all the different tracks.
Yeah.
But it's such a big world, especially at the moment. There's new advances coming out all the time, so it's a really cool kind of train to be on. And that's one thing I'm really conscious about, is just staying on the train, because the programs and everything develop so quickly.
Yeah.
Even with rugby, if I took 5 years, full noise rugby, to jump back on after 5 years would be a completely different beast. So I'll always be doing something along the way, no matter how small or
just to
what
keep,
it is,
just to stay in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
that kind of makes sense. Eh?
Yeah. So that's kind of industrial design in a nutshell. And I had some amazing lecturers down there. Teachers that had worked for Porsche and for some big companies that really led the way. And my dream job post-uni was always Wet at Workshop.
Yeah.
So the kind of film, prop design, set design stuff, which I think is definitely possible in the future. Just kind of gone down a different route, but I think anything in the entertainment space or film would be awesome. But now I've kind of entered into the sports space, which is also another passion, and I think there's a real chance to merge design into sport more and more. Like you look at Nike and some of the European running brands, and there's some massive work being done in and around that design space and sport. I kind of want to, I suppose, jump on that train as well. With what I'm doing. So,
do you want to talk about that? Because this is
yeah, for sure.
I was pretty excited to get to this point.
So it's good that it's led in this direction. I think I've been excited to share it with you as well. It's basically what I've launched in November with Shard Studios. So it's a research and product design company specialising in sporting equipment. So it's been in the works for a while.
I think I remember talking to your old man like a while ago, and he sort of floated. He's like, Tom's doing some pretty cool stuff. And
it was just always, I think, like I've mentioned earlier, is just asking that question, like, why do I even have to go into a grad role? Like, like, it's just so rewarding to get to a point to launch a business now, and do everything the way I want to do it. It's kind of started at university, where my projects were all fueled by problems. So a few of them we did. I developed a scrummaging suit, which was kind of like an exosuit that you kind of clipped in, and it had sensors on it, and you could measure kind of different scrummaging angles and stuff. So that was one of them.
Is it like anchored to something, or do you just wear it on you?
You wear it on you
while you're scrummaging.
You can either wear it while you're scrummaging, or like, it was actually designed for COVID. So if you were doing isolation drills at home, you'd have like power bands attached to trees, and you could monitor on your app kind of your pressure, your angles, if your back straight. Then you could I tried to set up like a way that you could compete with other mates at different houses around the world. Or kind of COVID scrum training.
Yeah.
So that was quite cool. So that was kind of one of the projects, and then I moved on to the other one, which was a multi-tool for rugby and football players. So that all started in Wellington in 2021. And I was in the changing room at Mara St. Pat's, where I played club rugby down there, and looking around kind of one pre-match and just thought, I need some pliers, and there wasn't any around, or there might have been a pair, but someone was using them. It was just pure chaos. You know what it's like in the shares. It's like, who's got this? And, 5 minutes they're on the field and
You're like,
panicking.
I need to change my sprigs.
You're trying to get in the headspace and your sprig's falling out, or you know what it's like. And
I know exactly.
Sometimes it's quite stressful.
Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, hang on, there needs to be something
Yeah.
for players, because when you go hunting, you take a Leatherman, or a Swiss Army knife. If you go camping, if you go mountain biking, you take a pocket, tool with. It's got everything on it that you need.
Yeah.
If anything went wrong.
Yeah.
Or if you need something in a hurry.
Yeah.
So the toolbox in the changing room, I thought could be compacted into one tool that every player should have.
Yeah.
So it started off. It was originally called the Type 5.
Oh yeah.
And it had five tools on it.
Yeah.
Which included like a Vivid pen
Oh yeah.
for boys that rode on the
Yeah,
wrists.
yeah.
Kind of, it was early doors. I went kind of down the 3D printing route in titanium. So there was a company over in Tauranga that were doing 3D printing in metal, which was super intriguing, but just wasn't feasible kind of for the projects. And I managed to get it to a point where I was really happy, and I presented and entered into the Best Design Awards, New Zealand Best Design Awards, which I was a finalist in for that design, so the Type 5. And then, it kind of put it to bed.
Yeah.
As most uni students probably do,
Yeah.
not knowing what kind of would happen over the next few years. And leaving university, the goal was to get straight into footy and to play, all year round, ideally, professionally.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite go that way, with injury and that kind of thing. So, it was a bumpy ride through COVID. So missing the 20s year, and then getting on the field for Waikato, but the year after having a hiccup, so rupturing my ACL in a club game in Wellington just before NPC started.
Oh yeah.
Which was like, oh, okay, this is the first kind of major injury, and kind of goes, what do you do now? Because it's your goal.
Had you finished studying at this stage, or about to?
Just wrapping up. It was very timely, actually. I think I'd handed in my assignment maybe even on the Thursday or Friday.
Oh yeah.
Injury happened on the Saturday, but I remember just being quite shocked about how to handle it. Being all geared up to move home and rip into some footy again. And I called Floss and was quite upset, I think. I remember, just because it was so, because didn't expect it to happen to me. Like, it was just, it's not part of the plan. And I think with the ACL, the daunting recovery time, the 9 to 12 months that everyone talks about is the first thing that you think about. It's a long time.
Yeah.
As much as I was enjoying design and stuff, it was still, when you're around and surrounded by players that are doing well as well at that age in rugby, that you really think that you should be there with them.
Yeah.
And that's hard to not think about when you're surrounded even by younger guys that are doing really well.
Yeah.
So that injury happened, and then I needed something to do to keep my mind busy, because I knew I needed something. So I went into Mike Williams Design in Hamilton, and this is kind of end of last year, so a few months after the injury had kind of settled, and I was kind of distance myself from the team just to focus on some work, or looking at work. Went into him. He owns an industrial design kind of firm in Hamilton and does some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
With lots of different companies, but was local and had a chat, kind of showed him my portfolio, and he was like looking through and he was like, oh, what's this, the tool?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's just this uni project. I think it's a really good idea, but it's what I did at university. And he said, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, why don't we focus on that? And I'll help you get that off the ground.
Yeah.
Forget any other work, I'll help you with that. So I said, oh, okay. So it was kind of like flick the switch, because as much as I listen and love mum and dad, and they're like, oh, you should do this and do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes someone else to say something that you don't really know that well.
Yeah.
So it was
it's weird, eh?
Yeah.
It's the same with like coaching, eh?
Yeah.
Like you go and do like a bit of resource coaching or something for a high school team or a club team or whatever, and you go in and say exactly what the coach has been saying, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the coach is standing there pulling his hair out, like, I've been telling them that all year. Yeah. But it's just that external reinforcement of a point sometimes is what you need, eh? Yeah,
so mum and dad definitely probably had that moment.
Yeah.
A few months ago when I launched. So from that day, I was like, oh, wow, he's kind of made me believe that I can. And because getting the degree in a way was just ticking the box a bit.
Yep.
But since the injury, it's become way more than that. Like it's developed into a career that I want to pursue and do just as well as I do in rugby. And, that's quite a powerful feeling. So that's really fueled the past probably 18 months of prototyping, designing what was the Type 5. And it's gone through a bunch of names. But, 19th of November, after probably 60 different designs, I'd say.
True.
Yeah.
Shit. I was going to ask how many.
Yeah. So
60.
Probably about. I laid them all out the other day because I've got them in a box.
Yeah.
And there's some funky looking ones.
Yeah.
But it's testing and trialing throughout that time. Got to the 19th of November, just been a month ago, and launched my pre-sale of what's called Vital. And it's an 8-in-1 multi-tool for rugby and football players, first of a kind. And I've got a pretty cool kind of plan around where I can see it going. And I think it's just super exciting to get it off the mark and to see the idea come through all of that.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, re-rupturing the ACL again, which I didn't mention, but like that was another big. Okay, I'm definitely finishing this now.
Yeah,
So we got there. It's been live for a month. The pre-orders have been live for a month. Yeah, and the support and the reaction's been awesome, super rewarding, and the list just is never ending, which I enjoy. And I think it's only going to get longer for sure. Yeah. But
it's a great way to like connect with like people too, eh?
Like,
being at the sevens on the weekend and you're in and around, it's so many familiar faces. Like even for me, going back and coaching an event like that, it's actually like, oh shit, there's a few faces used to play against or. Actually, my team played against the team, New Zealand the Cook Islands New Zealand team, and one of the boys in that team, I used to play with his dad. We played New Zealand schools together. Yeah. So it's like it's funny the rugby kind of circle how it doubles back on itself.
For sure. And I'm kind of I suppose experienced that network at a wider range than I would.
Yeah. Well, I think you're experiencing it. What you're experiencing now is what I experienced post-career. So like that, actually how far the reach and network goes, like with this podcast as an example, once there was lots of unforeseen things that when I was like, I want to do a podcast, and I was like, yep, sweet, cool. And then you start sort of working through it and it's like, oh man, it'd be really cool if my intro could feature some like commentary and stuff. And I was like, I'll just cut some clips. And I'm like, well, how am I going to get those clips? And then I was like, do I have the rights to use Sky Sport commentary? Like, is someone going to come back 10 years down the track and go, actually, it's like this, whatever. So I went through that whole journey and I want to talk about the Players Association because that was who I reached out to. I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. am I going about it the right way? And then all of a sudden, like all these feelers go out and you're getting all this different, sort of, I guess, resource and people to talk to and different ideas bounce back and forward. And then, then it comes through and I've got, the kaumātua for the now Māori All Blacks, New Zealand Māoris, when I played, wrote me permission to use the haka in my intro. And there's commentary that Sky Sports signed off on, like there's, commentators say my name, etc. or whatever in it as well. And I was like, and then the rights to all the imagery also. Yeah, and then Waikato Rugby giving me the rights to use the jersey, like in my logo, the one that's on the hoodie there, on your hoodie. Yeah. So, that all that kind of stuff. But then it was cool to get access to all of that, but it was actually seeing the reach and kind of pull that rugby has within New Zealand and into the community is massive.
It's cool, really cool to see players utilising that because everyone, most are you're so inviting,
Yeah.
And all it takes is you to actually go out of your way and ask. And a lot of the time, the network is far and wide and you can actually get a lot of reach out of it. And that's kind of why I went down this road of this pre-order kind of, personalised messaging and on the ground at the Sevens tournaments and that kind of thing, rather than like a Kickstarter campaign or something where I need reach. Like I really just wanted to connect with the reach that was accessible and is there. It just takes a bit of work, and that was kind of my thinking around going to market. And it's tricky, but there's multiple ways you can kind of skin the cat, I guess, but that's just what I chose to do. And I'm really glad that I did because I've met so many cool people that I might have met when I was young or whatever.
Yeah. There's something to that, like being personable too. I reckon. Like there's, a lot of sort of reasoning behind doing this podcast. Like originally, COVID taught all of us a lot. Like being isolated and shut in your house, and like how important time is, like with your family, because that was. I'm sure everybody out there was like had the best, if they were surrounded by family, they had their best memories are probably in that COVID period of no responsibilities for, like however long we were locked in the house and being able to have fun with your kids and all sorts of, different challenges that people were sort of going through virtually and all that kind of reaching out to old friends, long phone calls, all that kind of stuff because you had time. So it kind of taught you how important time was. But for me, like I grew up in a small community, so like Morrinsville's not big, and the guests have all heard me say this before, but the importance of buying from somebody is really important to me because it's the way I was raised. So, like for like a tool like yours, say, because this person like Tom has this amazing story which we're going through right here right now, but to me I would buy from the story as versus like buying something that was say the same or cheaper, or because I want that connection to why is your tool separate from the others, but there isn't one at the moment currently, but if there was, I'm buying it because I buy it from Tom, and that's a lot of the way I do my shopping. Like I use like the local grocer. I like all those little sort of things because that was the way I was raised. Like you buy from we used to buy all our veggies from the local veggie store because the veggie store owners' daughters were all in our classes at primary school. So that was sort of what we did, and that personable aspect. And that was a big reason for doing the podcast and starting it, was being able to help people or brands share their brand story, to be able to connect them to like a bigger audience, to be like, well, this is Tom. Like, so when you see Vitatool jump up and you're like, and you need, something for your club team or your soccer team or, your son for Christmas or daughter or whatever it is, like, then they can be like, oh, well, that Tom sounds like a good dude.
Yeah,
I'll buy from him.
That, It's quite hard to do it first, I think. There's one thing that I knew would be really important, and what I wanted to capture in the brand as a whole, was that how it got there. And I think the story, because I'm similar, I'm always invested in like what's behind the product. Yeah, it's really interesting to me. And no matter where it goes in the future, I wanted that to be where it started.
Yeah.
About how it actually happened, and then the look and the feel of that, aesthetic throughout the Shard branding, that kind of I felt fueled that as well. So I think that's always been massive for me starting off. Yeah, because like you, I do get a lot out of learning about what goes on, kind of in behind, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But I'm really excited, eh? Really excited, yeah.
Well, yeah, you can tell. But even just seeing you like at the Seven, well, seeing you Condors, and then
twice.
again at the World Youth Sevens, but you can, when you see somebody that's like really enjoying what they're doing or really passionate about what they're doing, you can visually see that. Like, that's what I could see, when I saw you, you're like chippy, a big smile on your face, springing your step, like, oh, how good's this? Like, get to come and show my product to, a whole bunch of different people. And but that kind of energy too, like, comes off on others. Like, they'll be like, oh, shit, wonder why he's in such a good mood. Or, that looks like an interesting conversation. Oh, what's he holding in his hand? And then that probes them to ask the question, oh, what was that you've got? Which I'm sure probably happened a number of times over the weekend.
It was super interesting. And quite, I learned a lot about myself as well, I think, over just the last few weeks, around like how to talk to people without knowing them first. I think that's something that was quite daunting at times.
It is, man.
Especially at a sevens tournament where there's win, just focused on the game, and it's I've got a lot out of it, even just meeting people and explaining like what it does in person, having there helps them understand, because not everyone's a visual learner or audible learner. Like, they like to feel it and see what the product's like as well. So that's helped, and I think all the function of the tool hopefully will kind of do their job and help everyone going forward.
Because what surely all the clubs have got in behind it too. So in the Waikato, I'm starting Nation. Close to home, I guess it's a good way to do it. So they're all trickling in the orders, and I'll be excited to see that all around. It'll be pretty cool
around the area, and then obviously scale and grow from there.
Because with the obviously when you did your launch, you got some pretty big, some of the biggest names in world rugby to be able to jump. Like, how cool is that though?
Oh,
for
awesome.
you, like starting a business, to be able to have, who'd you have? Anton and Quinn?
Anton and Quinn,
Yeah. How did that come about? Did you just approach them, or?
I think, obviously two Mulu boys, but I just reached out to them when I was kind of thinking about getting some content sorted and preparation. I think we went for a couple of coffees, and I was just super grateful with their response and just willingness to help me. I think I really appreciated them just saying yep without even questioning it. I think it was really quite special. I know Quinn well through school, and
are you the same year, you and Quinn?
No, I think he's 1 or 2 years older. But it was a pretty cool feeling that they were just so keen just to help. And then kind of just got to filming. Had to kind of tick all the boxes with the NZR stuff, just with branding and that kind of thing. And Kylie Devlin, who's now my colleague, and my best mate's auntie, kind of reached out and just said, I'm actually doing this and this right, because it can get a bit hairy, and I didn't want, like you mentioned before, people coming down on me like a ton of bricks a few months or years down the track. But I got all that sorted, and Josh Lord was actually involved as well. Before I learned kind of about the 3-person rule.
I was going to say that.
His hand is actually in the video. If you slow it down, you'll see it. But it's kind of only if you know. So I couldn't use his face, which was fine. And he's a really close mate of mine. We're the same year at school. So he was the first person I probably messaged about helping out. And then Quinn and Anton were awesome. Obviously Anton's got his own venture with Grins, and I think having that kind of creative mindset to have another, or passion or business is awesome.
Yeah.
So he was all about it. And then the filming day was quite funny because we used the stadium, and I flew up. My mate I mentioned before was in the flat who studied film and photography. And I let him know like who he was going to be working with, and he was pretty nervous, which was so funny because we spent the whole day setting up. Like, it was a lot to do it. A lot to do in a short amount of time. We didn't want to keep the boys for long. Yeah, in and out job. And we only needed them for about 20 minutes because we were that prepared. And Zach, my friend, was that nervous until we met them, and then they were cool. Yeah, but it was good. It was a good day. Yeah, and just getting that locked in really early on, and then building around that video. Yeah,
because how long ago did you film that?
That was probably April, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so quite early on.
A long time ago.
Or I think April, May. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Quite early on. Yeah. Just to get it locked in. And we built around that. Yeah. So because obviously pretty busy with World Cup and whatnot, so just needed to lock someone in that was keen to help, but also, packed a punch when people saw it.
Yeah, well, definitely did that. I'm sure made everyone. Well, they're so recognisable too, right? Like both of them, like not only here in, the Waikato, but like definitely in New Zealand, and like Anton's. How many tests he played for the All Blacks now? Well, over. Has he played 50? He's over 50. Yeah. So like on an international stage, like they're two pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah, no, it was as much. Yeah, the tool, being able to change out 21s and all of that. Yeah. Sprigs probably leaned to having a front rower, but as much as I love front rowers,
they're not recognisable.
Quinn and Anton were, for what I could work with, the pick of the bunch. Yeah. And no, it was good fun.
They get more likes. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So that you kind of we kind of talked around the sort of topic of the Players Association, but you're obviously also involved with the Players Association. So like I mentioned just a little bit earlier, just for the listeners, like Players Association is basically like a group that works alongside NZR, but like on the looking after players' welfare, basically is like I guess an easy summary, but also really amazing in the space of transition for players coming in and out of, obviously professional rugby and injuries and all that kind of stuff. So, and you're now involved?
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Again, not something I planned, as well as kind of all came about after the second ACL injury, and Nikita at NZR.As needed some work done around the player development space. So PDP program, which, like we mentioned, academies earlier, it's kind of all that educational kind of platform and learning around everything outside of rugby. Yeah. And sat down with her for a coffee, and through my agent kind of worked that out, and was going to do some work with her around some look and feel of design with that, and then ended up meeting Rob Nicol a few weeks later, and just to talk about the job and a few things, and we ended up spending probably the first hour talking about the tool, which was awesome. And I think it probably represented quite well like the whole player development space as a whole, and what the NZR.PA is about is just, it's not all about footy. It's so much more than that. Being a rugby player. Yeah. So to build on what I've done, and then to apply not only my design, but probably my passion for, the awareness around the life around rugby, outside of rugby, has been cool. So I work been working with them for the last 2 months through a lot of their design and collateral work, and we've got some pretty cool things coming out early 2024. So
Nice.
I think, having a modern kind of lens as well as a player lens is kind of what they're looking for.
Yep.
And then working alongside like the really strong strategic platforms that they've got already and just bringing that to life visually, which is probably an area that needs some love. And we're working hard to make it look real cool and what players want to actually invest their time in.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting space that, because like as a player, when I was coming, through my professional career, and I think about, sort of, I don't know, I guess my early mid-20s, even into my late 20s, I actually had like no idea of what I wanted to do post-rugby. But just having, and so like the, professional development space, like, the PDM, professional development managers and stuff, I just, like, I didn't gravitate real heavily to like, I guess any of the kind of presentations that sort of came and gone. But in saying that, I probably connected with all of them, like in some little way, with like, oh, I like a bit of that, and but that's not what I'd like to do full time. And then it's like, oh yeah, that would be pretty cool, but no, that's not what I want to do. Like long term, like there's lots of little bits and pieces, and I know that I know players can be real, like, about PDM, and they're like, they'd rather go play golf or whatever. But in hindsight, like looking back, and I was probably that player at certain times through my career too. But in hindsight, like looking back, it's funny. You talk to Rob Nichol about the tool, like the Players Association is a tool for the, and that's what I think the players struggle to understand. Is like they're actually there for you, like they. And the work that they do is amazing, and then but it's also, it's not once you, it's like everything, right? Like you get older and wiser, and then you realise, you're like, holy shit, like why don't I take advantage of that? So
you get injured, and then you really realise it's interesting you mentioned that. It's quite common, I think, amongst rugby players to kind of be so invested in rugby that you kind of got, that kind of tunnel vision, and it's easy to do when you're so, it's all you want to do. It's all you need to do well. So it's just about, I think, making it as inviting as possible, and it might be, we've been working through, what other ways can we reach players, because not everyone works or learns from looking at a PowerPoint or listening to someone even. It can be in multiple different ways. So I think it's just about how can we, enter each player's kind of life and enrich kind of their skills around rugby, and present that in a way that they can take it in. Because everyone's different.
Yeah, it is interesting, eh?
It is really interesting,
And it's such a, like, well, when you work in a bloody, like any team, but if you work in, highly fueled testosterone environment with like a, professional rugby team, like there's a lot of different, I guess, learning routines in the room, and there's the different personalities, and like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds a bit like your Wellington flat. Eh?
Bit of a, what did I say, eclectic mix. It's definitely, it's, but it ends up, they've done some amazing things, and it wouldn't take much, or you've played overseas, but I think in terms of, other countries, it's a massive support network that a lot of players overseas don't get.
That's the thing. Like when I went overseas and I talked to, like different players from all around the world, they end up playing with, and you talk about this resource that we have, and they're like, what? Like, how good's that? And they're like, man, I wish I had that. And it's like, and you kind of sit there and you think, because when you're in it, like you think it's just normal, right? Like you don't actually realise that it's not like that. And there's all these, the Players Collective Agreement in New Zealand Rugby is amazing compared to what you have to deal with when you go overseas. Like I'd signed a contract in Japan with like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like crazy amount of money, and I'd signed it. The team representative had signed it, but then I come back to New Zealand and then they can the team and I don't get a cent of that money because they're like, oh no, that big company didn't sign it off. And I was like, oh, but it's got signatures on it. Yeah, but that doesn't matter if the company says no. It's no.
Okay.
You know, so it's like that would never happen in New Zealand rugby. It couldn't. Like the collective agreement's too strong and it's well thought out and you know, like even you look at the All Blacks and their pay structure and how they, you know, if they're a current All Black and they're unavailable due to injury, they still get paid. And people go, oh, that's a waste of money. And it's like, well, are you going to risk your body? Like, you know, like a professional player has to. Like, if it came down, no, you injured, you don't get paid. Like, no one would play. Yeah. Like, you wouldn't feasibly be able to run that risk. Or, you could for a short period of time. And you'd hope like how you got lucky. But, you know, if that was the case in your scenario and there wasn't that support network around.
Well, the job was the silver lining and the kind of last, you know, net really, because the second ACL was off contract and hoping to sign in the coming weeks. Probably around that time, I'd had 4 club games and building.
Oh, your name was on the list. I was in the room.
I'd like to. Yeah, we were getting there. Getting there, and it was all part of the plan. And I enjoyed finding some form again. And then, sure enough.
Talk us through that moment. Like, how did it happen? That time.
The second time was.
So what were you 4 games back?
Fourth game. Fourth game. It was the 70-something minute. So towards the end, just got tackled awkwardly, kind of from the side, and just landed and felt it buckle. And I knew straight away it was gone again, and hoped like hell that it hadn't. But because you know people around you trying to help you think that, but. Yeah, sure. It's not a nice feeling.
Does it pop? Is it like a?
Yeah, it's a bit of a pop, or like a dislodge kind of feeling,
like
uncomfortable,
raunchy kind of.
Yeah, and then the pain pretty bad for a short amount of time, and then it kind of goes. Which is quite interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that wasn't great. Almost towards the end of the game, Hamilton Old Boys. And then was in a pretty tricky spot. Like I was kind of just all hope on playing again that year, and because I just launched the business that week, I also hadn't set up any protection. Any ACC. For self-employment. Yeah. Because I'd just come off kind of ACC cover for the previous injury, and it was like that window of time was the only time that I hadn't had the support to set up everything I needed to. I didn't even know. It was a massive learning for me, and it kind of added to the whole disappointment when I found out that I went into this probably 1 month long battle with ACC around having to prove that I was self-employed. I'd done some work for some clients that week. And I think there were 2 invoices that kind of held on. That meant I could at least get covered for the work I'd, done, or like projected amount for the year's earnings whilst I was going through my kind of surgery and all that. Because without that, I would have just been nothing. So that was really that plus the disappointment plus the future and kind of all these thoughts around, second time and all that. It was a tricky few weeks.
That must have been mentally tough. Very tough.
And you've just launched, I was doing design services through Shard Studios at the time. I hadn't launched the tool, but I was, excited about my own business and working towards that, and then even that being taken away as well for that period of time when you're kind of mobile. It was real tricky. Looking back, it's like, if it wasn't for my girlfriend, my mum and dad,
Yeah.
it would have been tough, real tough.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you guys and the coaches as well, to kind of keep their hand there and get me through the kind of first stages of rehab and everything has been massive, because I could have just been hung out to dry if I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I think that there's the rugby environment is space now is like a place, I think, especially from like a professional aspect, is it's so infiltrated with past professionals now, because it's been professional like long enough now that we're cycling into other roles, and you know, there's going to be ex-professional rugby players that are going to be physios and doctors, and like, you know, eventually like there'll be a really big network of understanding. And I think from a, you know, like myself and Floss's point of view, like we only played in the professional era, so we have like a really good understanding of like what it's like to be, not necessarily in your position because I haven't done an ACL, but to know what the environment gives and what the environment and like how it encompasses like people that are in it, and we also have both been now out of it, so you know what it's like when you're not there. So it's like, oh shit, like how do we make sure that, you know, we look, because Floss is huge on that, and so am I. It's like, how do we look after our people? Like, better people make, you know, the All Blacks talk about it. Better people make better All Blacks. And like, they used to talk about that all the time. I don't know if it's so strong anymore, that, but it's definitely strong in our environment, and Floss lives and dies by that. Like, he cares, like, it's people first, rugby second. And sometimes it gets a little bit balanced too. Sometimes I'm like, well, maybe we should do a little bit more rugby. But at the end of it, you can never fault that ever, because the other side of that is, like, you guys know, like, you guys have so much more knowledge and I guess training time under your belt by the time you leave school than we ever did. So there's a lot of stuff sometimes we got to actually just realize that there's some certain things that you guys just are naturally going to do because it's almost been programmed in. So that kind of care and people aspect is super important.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's super important, and it's something that you can always work on, even if you are injured. And it's huge.
Because you designed our meeting space, eh?
Yeah. I've done a few little things. One of them was refreshing the legacy room, the stadium. The project that Floss and I worked on together.
When did you do that?
Oh, it was in between seasons as well, I think. Beginning of maybe that 21 season, the COVID year.
Oh, yeah.
I think. We got a mural done at the back, and then just needed the white, kind of just to liven it up a bit. It was all, you know,
it was that
Carver brown.
Was a.
And then we kind of thought about that legacy wall, and now it's kind of served as a kind of themed wall, weekly themes and stuff, which is cool. Well, it was just simple things, but it was cool that Floss even reached out to.
Well, it's a bit of a connection, like, place, eh? Like, it's funny because that room has been so many different things since I've been in that environment. So originally, that used to be the cardio room.
Oh, okay.
That and the physio room. That used to be the cardio room. The physio rooms used to be in the tunnel. For listeners, you'll be like, what the fuck are they talking about? But and the gym used to be, you know, the cardio room now, that was the gym.
Oh, okay.
That other, where the gym is, that was all like storage and shit. So it's so funny seeing it evolve like over time. Like the coach's office used to be the players' lounge with the kitchen and all that. That wall wasn't in between, it was all one big space. Coaches used to be in like the analysis room, and
it's become quite a special place, to be honest. Because I remember, I think, because I was in the kind of era, the beginning, like 2014, 15, when they started like the pre-academy space.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember doing like Olympic lifting training and stuff with Sevu, who's long gone from you know, Waikato, but that was in and around that whole space for a while, and it's become pretty comfortable in a good way.
Yeah.
And I enjoy just going in there, smashing out a session.
Yeah. No, it's so funny because when I went overseas, like I had 10 seasons as being in a professional environment when I left.
Yeah.
And a lot of why I left was because I was just like, I was in this like rut. I was like, Chiefs and Waikato used to both base themselves out of the stadium. So literally for like 10 years, I drove myself in the same place, sat in the same seat. So, and nothing had changed. Like, you know, there's a few tiny little adaptations and stuff, but it was just like the walls are all the same colour, and we play indoor cricket in our lunchtime, and like, you know, like all this same kind of routine.
Cool.
I was like, and I'd been coached by Fozzie the whole time.
Yeah.
So I had Fozzie at Waikato to start with, then he got the Chiefs, and then I made the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably a little patch in the middle where for maybe 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
1 year, sorry. 1 year I didn't have him. I had Mitch for Waikato, and I wasn't involved with the Chiefs. And then the next year, I was in the like wider training squad, with Fozzie. So I've had Fozzie for like a decade, like, you know. So hearing the same voice, you know, like the same messages, like, and I'll give it to him. Like, he's consistent, like with his messaging, like it's the same. But it kind of. And it was quite funny because when I decided to go overseas, that was kind of a big driver. I wanted a different experience and that kind of stuff. And if I'd known what it actually was going to happen in terms of the change in the Chiefs moving to Ruakura, and they kind of tried to hint a lot of that stuff at me when I was making my decision, but I made my decision ended 2010. Yeah. And obviously Fozzie still coached in 2011 before he went into the All Blacks that year. And then even Fozzie made stupid comments at me when I was trying to sign as, you never know who's going to end up in the All Black coaching group and this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was just like, and if I stayed, I wouldn't have made it anyway. So, but like there was a lot of, you know, that sort of stuff going on, and they were hinting at, you know, obviously it's going to be a big change at the Chiefs, new coach coming in. And I was just like, look, I want to go. Like, I just want a different experience. Like, and there was lots of different factors to why I chose Japan. I purely made my decision to go overseas for money and an experience. That was it. Yep. Plain and simple. I was like, it's a professional game. Like, if I wanted to play for a team that I loved and I cared about, I never would have left. But at that point in time, I was like, okay, I was 26, which is young, and I'd played 78 games for Waikato and 60 odd for the Chiefs, 61 maybe.
Yeah,
but I was just
change.
I was just like, nah, I'm gonna go have a life experience. I'll do 2 years. If I don't like it, I'll come home, and I would have, you know, made a good amount of money that I can put towards my mortgage, and then I'll come back and have another crack, and I'll still only be 28. But then obviously ended up staying for 6 years and came back and still played for Waikato.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think for me as well, like rugby wise, I think you forget sometimes how young you are. 23 now. And I think when you're around younger guys doing well, like I mentioned before, it's easy to get caught up in like, I'm slipping, you know, or I'm going to miss the boat, I won't be able to do it again or whatever. But it's, I think Adam Thompson mentioned, I think after the first or second ACL, he said, like one year, this half of the career is another year you can add on at the end.
Yeah.
Which is quite a good way to look at it. So hopefully that comes through, and I can play, you know, for a long time. Once I get back on the field.
Yeah. Well, there's some definite truth to what Tomo says there, because me going at 26 to Japan, like taking the physical toll out of my body for 6 years, allowed me to still be able to play for Waikato when I was 35. 100%, without a doubt. If I'd stayed playing in New Zealand, I was no way. I would have physically, I think my body would have packed it in before then, because my body started to, like, after, you know, sort of when did I finish playing for Waikato? I was 37. Maybe, and then the last couple of years, like I played Heartland for the Valley, and just little things. But a lot of that is because you can't train full time anymore. Yeah. So like my mind knows what to do. My body knows how to do it. Your body's trying to do it, but you need the training load to
Yeah.
be able to do it consistently.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to balance, at my point of my career, when you're younger, when you don't have family, you don't have kids, to be able to do an academy sort of type setup and work part-time or work first half of the year, play professionally, you can put that extra time in while you're still working.
Yeah.
But when you get to the other end, when you got 2 young kids and a wife and you're working and then you're trying to, work right up and then drop tools and then play pro footy for like a 3-month period, you can't get all that work in coming in because you can't be that selfish anymore. I can't, well, it's not that it can't be selfish. I'm sure I could be and probably be supported by my wife for it, but it's, you don't want to be, because it's like, man, I want to go to Coops and Mason's rugby training or watch some swimming or whatever instead of going to the gym. Is like, oh, well, I just won't do Monday and I'll do, but it's every one day you don't do is,
sure.
at that stage of your career, like that sort of brings the end. Yeah,
It's interesting as well,
because the
eh?
game's intense.
Yeah. I mean, not many people try to continue
No.
throughout those later years, eh? And I think, it's testament to you and your character, I think, to keep the balance for as long as you could, really, 'cause
Yeah.
it's tricky.
Well, DG talks about it. Have you ever done any work with Dave Galbraith?
I remember him coming into one of our Chiefs 18s camps a
Yeah.
while back, and always remember him being pretty awesome to listen to.
Yeah.
Captivating,
Yeah.
different, refreshing, eh?
Yep.
Yeah.
And real, like, common sense, like, matter of fact.
Yeah.
But he talks a lot about, like, males, like, physically peak at 36, I think. Yeah, but he used to talk about it all the time, and it was quite funny because he was obviously involved with the Chiefs. I was there the first day he ever came in to a professional rugby team.
Yeah.
And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And he told this amazing story, but then... Yeah, worked with him, but it was a really formative time of my life. Like I was ready to be pushed harder. I'd had, really good foundation up to that point in my career. I'd had, a taste of success, but I was ready to like really jump in and be like, okay, how far can I go? How good can I be? And how am I going to do that? I didn't know, but he talked a lot about being like, fearless, like, he used to talk about 2 different pathways, pathway 1 and pathway 2. Pathway 1's of courage, pathway 2's of reassurance, and your behaviour and modelling your behaviour to be about courage. So don't be scared to fail, try things, so on and so on. And then obviously I had Warren Gatlin at the same time as a coach, and he was very similar. Gave me a great sort of sit down, talk to around that same time. Was just like, you're never going to, like, you're a great player, but you're too worried about perfection. Like you got to, I need to see you fail. I need to see, like, really push yourself.
Yeah.
And then, sort of having him there through that kind of period really kind of transformed me into a place where I actually didn't give a shit. Like, I still cared, but not enough that it would overcome me, where before it kind of used to. I'd be, like, quite worried about what other people thought and that kind of thing. And I think, it's human nature, you're always going to be. But it was to a point where I was like, oh yeah, I know they're going to think that, but I actually know that was the right thing to do, or I could have done that better, or whatever. But I was kind of content in my process. Yeah.
Yeah, the psychology part of sport is massive. Like it's
Because you're working with Rachel currently.
yeah, at the moment, which is equally as important as the physical rehab, I think.
Yeah. Probably more so. I reckon.
More so for sure. Especially second time round. The first time it's new, you're all guns blazing to get back on the field.
Yeah. And it's kind of a process, right? You're like, okay, I'll do this, I tick that box, and then that box.
And you ask
and
questions.
Now you've ticked all those boxes and it failed you, so you're like, is this box, are we ticking the right ones here?
Exactly, yeah. I think you've got to think outside the box and actually, what else can you do to give yourself the best chance? And there were a few hiccups the first time. About the 6-month mark, I was doing aqua jogging and swimming and stuff, and actually slipped at the pool.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who knows about it, but a few people do, and it was pretty. That was another like, sheesh, I don't know. This is going to be tough to get back on the feet, kind of thing, because I thought I'd done it again at the pool.
Oh okay.
Yeah. and slipped, kind of fell in like a quad stretch.
Oh.
Yeah. So that went in and buckled under, and that was tricky.
Yeah.
Got tested out and reassured that it was okay.
Yeah.
Be back to the surgeon and stuff. But it wasn't.
Do you reckon
smooth
that
sailing.
had an element to?
Well, I'm not sure.
I suppose
and
everything.
and a part of this second round is like, okay, whatever happened is like, it's clean slate. If there was anything, clean slate, and almost having the path mapped out for you because you've been down it before is, it's quite a good feeling knowing what to expect. Like, it's a good feeling. But I think the grey area comes in that kind of when it is time.
Yeah. Put the boots on.
I know my
get
play.
the tool out.
Yeah, get the tool
check
out.
the sprigs.
Check the sprigs. Cut the tape. Clean the sprig hole. Does it do 8 things?
Yeah.
And I'll be and I'm all calm in the shed, not stressed. But I think I know that I play my best footy when I'm fearless and playing with, full confidence in like my skills and also my body.
Yeah.
So that area in particular is kind of what I've been working on with Rachel. And how can we bring that out? That fearlessness, so that when it comes time to even full contact training and playing, like, the last thing I want to be thinking about is the knee. Because, like in rugby, you can't be thinking about anything else, really.
No.
Well, you just can't.
Nah.
You're running into a brick wall.
fast. Yeah.
You've got to be putting that aside for sure. So I'm working, it's good. She's been awesome. We started off doing a bit of like ice bath work, and obviously a bit of a craze at the moment, but more so just putting myself in uncomfortable positions or finding different things that make me uncomfortable. Because when you're in an ice bath, like, all you're thinking about is like the ice and like the cold.
And I want to get out.
Yeah. And then I'd get like someone ask me questions and stuff, like in the bath. And then when you're answering the question, the last thing you're thinking about is the bath.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the question.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of idea around how can you train the brain to actually forget about what's hurting or what your body doesn't like. Because on the field, it is almost like a maths equation, and if you can kind of channel that, it's been good. And I think other areas around keeping the balance, like we've mentioned a lot throughout the talk, but giving myself the most time to rehab and keeping that the priority on top of the priority list, and that's always going to be ahead of the business. If I have to drop something, it'll be something else. And keeping that, that time separate, and all your time blocks kind of balanced and equal. Yeah. Because when things start creeping into other things, and it can get overwhelming, and then you burn out. And I think the least times I burn out, just because the business and even creative burnout's a massive thing for me. I know when I'm reaching a point where I'm done. Yeah. And that does affect kind of everything, and training and everything. Yeah. So the least I can
it must take a lot of energy,
for sure.
Especially when you're trying to create something. It's not like there's something there. Yeah. It's like you're trying to visually and like make this thing come to life that doesn't actually exist.
And I have a funny way of working. I don't know if other designers might be able to relate, but my mind's always going. But I have to work to a point where I reach like a perfect equilibrium in my head with design. So there's a point that I know on whatever it is, if it's a post or a logo that I'm doing for someone or a tool, there's a point where it's balanced in my head. Yeah. So like I work like crazy.
Can you explain that, or is it just
the balance?
You've got it there?
I don't know. It's kind of just the point where I'm really satisfied. I think, and it might not be perfect. I am.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it's done, or does it have to be complete?
Yeah, I think there's a point where it feels done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a real hard one to explain, but I think, like for example, with university, I'd always get told, like, oh, you're not very good with time management, or
Yeah.
because I'd be working, sometimes all-nighters, like leading up to the assignment handing.
Yeah.
But the way I looked at it was, if I don't use all the hours that I've got before the hand, then the end product won't be as good
Yeah.
as if I slept.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like how I
Yeah.
and it's a funny one, eh?
No, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
But it's just different. Like how you've obviously got the capacity to be able to do that, and there's someone saying you're not good with time management. That somebody that needs to be able to disconnect themselves from that for a period of time to function well.
Yeah.
Where it just sounds like if you want to get it done, you can get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's a real funny one, eh?
your body will find a way to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing that I've always underlined is like, I'll always find a way, and we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
But
Always
sometimes
high
the motor
days.
does burn out, and that's when that's with Rachel. We're trying to just work on, recognizing when it is.
When's the motor gonna burn? Yeah.
Or when it's humming and what that looks like.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to you though, because I'm like that if I'm doing something or like I have to do it to completion. Like if I start doing something, I'm like all in, and I like hyper focus until I've completed that job, and then I'm again like balanced and equal and that kind of thing. Like just like real weird shit.
Yeah. It's a funny one. We can go all night probably.
Yeah.
And like
I could never half mow the lawns. Like never.
It's funny. Like, Dad does call me Half Job Harry because I think like it's only things I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
If it's the dishwasher, it might be the top tray. But
yeah,
give me a branding guide to do or something.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same like that because if it's what I'm passionate about, then I'm all in. Like I'll be down there fucking getting my fishing rods ready and whatever, and I'll be going fishing at 4 a.m, and I'll happily still be in there at 1 in the morning getting all my everything, make sure I've got everything's laid out, all in order, good to go, sweet, go and lie down for 2 hours and probably barely sleep and get up and go, and I'm sweet. Yeah, but like just try and get me up for like a routine day, and then I'm just like, oh, can't, there's no way I could just function off 2 hours sleep.
Yeah, and that goes back to like, you got to do what you love, eh? Like I think it's been massive for me, and probably yourself. You just get so much joy factor out of doing something you enjoy.
It's amazing you have that realization at your age, like 23. Fuck, I didn't know anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of everything's just kind of made me realise like what I want to do.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'll not do what brings me joy. And design, I do want to be an amazing designer. Just as much as a rugby player. Yeah. Like that's genuinely what I'm on.
It's pretty cool that you've found a way to merge the two together too. Yeah,
I want to encourage it more. I think.
Yeah.
I think design and rugby, it's never been really a mix that's often seen. Even like creative work in sports, it's kind of a bit of a weird divide. I don't know. Yeah. But the more I can do it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because like with rugby players in New Zealand, we don't actually invest that much really, like in terms of our like back into ourselves to perform. Like it's kind of what's given to you, and you go to an academy and this is supplied, that's supplied. If you don't get the protein free, you don't buy it. Like all that kind of stuff. I think it's definitely been like a bit of a shift, but in terms of, like having a tool, like taking preparation into your own hands, to be like, not have to get there and rely on, I'm the sort of player that would, I have to have my own sprig tight now. I have to have because I can't rely on anybody else because my brain doesn't function that way. If I walk into a changing room and I've only got one pair of boots, I'm itchy because I'm like, fuck, what if my boots break today? Yeah. So I never do. I always have 2 pairs of boots every game, and it makes my skin crawl when I see all the other boys going there with one, and I'm like, bro, what are you going to do with your boots? Like, what are you going to do? Oh, I'll tape it up. And I'm like, what? How are you going to play with a taped up boot?
So interesting. I used to think like that as well with like pre-match like food and fuel. Like if I don't eat enough, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not going to like not going to be able to
Go as hard.
tackle in the 80th minute or whatever,
Yeah.
just because I didn't have the right, or if I'm too full or whatever.
Yeah.
Overthink things. Probably susceptible to overthinking a lot of the time. But
yeah.
the preparation side, that's the whole idea around where I'm starting with the first product is like prepare to perform. You're taking it into your own hands, like you mentioned. And you don't need to rely on anyone else. And you really notice it with guys I've approached that are like yourself, that want everything the way they want it.
Yeah.
And then you've got guys that, I don't need that.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But it's a good tool for, like, that guy that's like, I don't want it. He'll go and get it out of the fucking manager's.
Yeah, he'll get out of the manager's bag.
Yeah. When he needs it.
So that's kind of the two markets, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a third market, kind of the parents of kids as well. So, but yeah, so your coaches and managers, and then pretty much any player that takes the game seriously or wants to, improve in the game, which can be from any age. But it's I've learned heaps, probably more so in the last 6 months than the whole degree. But
Yeah.
it's just nuts, eh?
That's kind of life though, eh? And like how it works.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's pretty crazy how there's nothing beats time, like real life.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about how important time was. People realized how important time was with COVID, but like actually in anything, like time doing something is just so valuable because you just learn all those little lessons and things pop up that you didn't know about, and clearly you like utilizing time.
Yeah, for sure.
As much of it as possible.
Yeah. I think I was on the laptop after surgery, contacting my manufacturers and just learning and that kept me going, really. And new things you don't get taught at uni.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. There's anything else we haven't covered?
No, I don't think so. I think,
No?
yeah, that's kind of the rundown.
Yeah.
There's a lot to fit in, but I appreciate you having me on. That means a lot, and it's cool to see your podcast going really well.
Yeah. It's like, well, for me, it's amazing. I've actually sat here and I kind of thought it was going to go this way in terms of, like, for a 23-year-old to be able to sit here and talk, we nearly talked for 2 hours. That's amazing. Like, I have a lot of rugby guests that will struggle to talk this long because they don't have a vast sort of awareness of themselves, or they are who they are in their kind of space that they're in, where you've got that in two spaces at your age already, which is pretty cool. It's amazing to hear your self-awareness of what drives you, what you're passionate about, how you like to fuel those. Even hearing you talk about everyone's born creative, and I've just fueled it. That actually made a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Because I'm like, because I wouldn't say I'm a creative person. Yeah. But after you explaining that, and then me thinking about things that I do, I was like, I'm 100% creative.
Yeah, for sure. Like
I just apply it in different ways.
Even your strike moves and stuff, like you have fueled it.
Yeah.
Laying out your fishing gear, like it's all.
It's
balanced, like it's.
Yeah.
Like it's creative. Yeah.
And then the balance has been another key word. But is there any key takeaways you want to leave the listeners with? Wrap us off?
No, I just think, anything you want to do, you can do. And that's something that I was brought up on from a young age, and I'll take forward because it's just so important, to realise it. And be creative, I think, is probably a pretty cool point that I don't talk about often, and I think, kind of brought it out of it in this talk. But I think that's massive, just be creative. And
fuel it, eh?
Yeah, for sure, because we need more. For sure.
No, I'm, and it's funny you say that too, in terms of we need more, because in the modern, I'm just, going to take it back to rugby before we wrap it up, but the the modern player is not very creative because of the visual tools available. So when we were younger, we talk about this a lot, me, Tomo and Floss, is we had to like create shit in our head and visualize things, because it was like video analysis was like just coming in, you know. So and there wasn't all these like, you know, 10, 20 years of footage documented to be able to go and watch how moves run perfectly or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like standing there, visualizing the opposition, visualizing yourself in it, and being like, okay, how are we going to manipulate that person to create space there? And then so like we had to fuel our creativity by visualizing, by communicating, by doing, you know, where now it's like players want to see keynotes, which is fine. It's a great learning tool, but I've really struggled at the moment because the players can't create their own. Like, they can't be like, oh, go give us something there.
Yeah.
And then if you create something, so this year we had a brand new attack shape,
Yeah.
fully created by myself, and it's created due to habits that have formed in the game. So I'm like, I knew that I could manipulate those habits by making it look like something that it wasn't, in terms of like a 1-3-3-1. So being able to create something that visually in a snapshot looks like it, but then all of a sudden it actually is far from it, triggers instincts in the defense, which I know are going to like because it's what they train every day. Then you can manipulate that space, but the players really struggled because I couldn't show them any footage of it working. But if I showed them doing it, they struggled to see it working because it wasn't working to completion. So it's like, oh, look, there's the space there, but we didn't finish it. But it's like, oh, but it didn't work. Like, but it's like, yeah, but can you not see, you know, like, and then it would take a long time for that lesson to sink.
It's an interesting one, eh? The generation as a whole, it's really interesting. I think you're always looking for recognition of it working. Or like it being done.
Well, because it can, because you can pick up your phone and Google it.
Exactly,
Did that work? And it's like, oh, yeah, it worked.
There's less and less of people trialing it and failing and then trying something else. And
because someone's already done it.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty cool space that you get to live in, where you're like doing things that people haven't done, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Daunting as well.
Yeah.
But
well, you got the right mindset for it.
Thrilling and good feeling of like growth, and you're always learning. And I'm heavily involved, like inspiration and gathering inspiration from around me is massive too.
Yeah.
So that comes from all sorts. But so it's not all from the head.
Yeah.
It is, but it's channeled, I suppose, through.
Yeah. You got a good filter in there.
Yeah, and drawing on things that work well, like you mentioned, actually seeing it work well, but then how can I like add to it or manipulate it to work?
Yeah, well, that's
a different way.
That's
You know what I mean?
the tool, right? Because there's already sprig tighteners, there's already Sharkies for tape, but it's like, how do I make it better? How do I integrate it?
So the first one was. She was pretty ugly, the first one, but we got there.
Got there?
Yeah.
How was the one that you went to the design awards for? Was that ugly?
I can show you after. It's Oh, it was cool with the pen in it.
Yeah.
Because it made sense, but functional wasn't really that functional.
Because the pen would be, you wouldn't be able to replace it though, eh? Like once it wore out, it'd be.
Yeah, that was my issue.
Yeah.
And the longevity and the idea of a Leatherman or a Victorinox. I mean, I think the day it changed was when my dad had been up to his dad's place, my granddad's, and he brought back a couple Swiss Army knives that he had lying around from his granddad.
Yeah.
And they were still, even though they were a bit rusty, they were still functional. I was like, hang on.
Yeah.
My Vital needs to be like this.
Generational. Yeah.
If I put a Vivid in it, it's just... just distracts the idea of like high quality. So, hey, the next product I might look into doing something like a pro player's pen or something that could have USB and stuff in it or something. But I think it was a good call. But the design awards was awesome. Went up for the weekend up in Auckland and was surrounded by some pretty cool other designers, and that was another turning point. It's like, okay, I could see myself, pursuing. Even in New Zealand, trying to reach the top. Because you look at artists like David Truebridge with the lights, even like the Emirates sail team NZ boat, and all birds
Yeah.
shoes, you know, like
Yeah, this
like
New
there's
Zealand does some amazing stuff.
there's
eh?
some cool
Like,
stuff out there, and New Zealand for a small country does pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get like when you're in that environment, are you looked at different because you're a jock, like because you're a rugby player?
I don't know. I think
Because you know, like when I think of like
yeah.
technical design, you know, like
Yeah.
designers and stuff, I don't think of like this big burly,
Yeah,
you know, like fit rugby player. They'd be like, you walk in and be like, is this guy
Uni
lost?
was interesting. It was because in Wellington it's filled with creatives,
Yeah.
all shapes and sizes, and there weren't too many rugby boys around.
No.
So I'd be coming in like rugby gear or, you know, studying and training gear and stuff, and then you'd have some people wearing some wacky things.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my lecturers were always so stoked that I could merge the two.
Yeah.
So
That's
throughout-
cool, man. It's a
throughout
very
my
cool
projects,
story.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they just said it's a no-brainer. Like when you're in the environment, you learn so much without even knowing it. So a lot of the research, the first-hand research of knowing what I wanted from the tool, was kind of the 12 years I've been playing rugby. You know, that was.
Yeah.
It had already started, the research
Yeah.
and development, you know.
Yeah.
So to use that and integrate it made
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And
then you know what angles you need to.
you
You need it for your boots and all that kind of stuff, eh? But if some designer was like, oh, I reckon this would be, you know, or some rugby player went to a designer and said, I want to make this, it'd be like, okay.
Be a long process.
But if you, it'd be a lot longer because you wouldn't understand the function of it. But,
and that's what teams of people do, work on projects and stuff. But yeah, I think it just made sense to merge the two. Hopefully, I'm pretty keen to keep merging them. And sport in general is always, I think, a pretty cool space.
Well, it's like that. It's what everyone tries to get in a team and a business is alignment. But you are the, you know, you're your own alignment at the moment, and that's the that's what you want. Like I talk about it. I think I talked about it with the Ironclad crew on their podcast about how, like, you know, that people reach out to them on social media and they're the ones responding. Yeah. And people, they get feedback and all that kind of stuff, and they have the ability to make instant change. And I was like, when you got a whole lot of middle management, all it takes is one person to be out of alignment and the message doesn't get to you, or it comes circle around a year later and it's like, oh man, we should do that. And it's like, oh, well, such and such has already done it. And it's like, well, why didn't we do that? And it's like, oh, well, I didn't think you would be interested. Yeah. So it's like that, you know, you can really see the benefit of, like, well, we know as athletes in you know, in the sport of rugby, when you get a team that's aligned and everyone's heading in the same direction, it's hard to beat. Yeah. But when you're, you know, it's the exact same in business. Yeah. Like, and for you, you know, with what you're doing now, it's awesome because you've merged the two, so you can be the creator and the doer. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's going to be massive for me, I think, going forward. You know, and alignment moving forward, scaling and surrounding myself with people that also, you know, on that same boat and that share passion for it. So yeah, no, it's going to be good.
Yeah. I'll look forward to it, Tom. The next podcast will be a ripper.
The next one.
Imagine if we got this out of you when you're 23. Imagine if we get you when you're like 30.
Well, yeah, no, I'm excited. Yeah.
I just have to make sure I keep it going, keep the podcast going. But no, thank you very much for coming on, Tom. Like I said, pretty amazed at your awareness of, you know, your passions and what sort of motivates you, and that, you know, like my two big kind of takeaways from this is that, like, fueling the creativity, like understanding that everybody's got it, and you might, if we all show it in different ways, but if you keep fueling it, like,
rewarding.
It's rewarding. And then that, and balance has been a big one for me, like, because I talk about that a lot, and the importance of, you know, like, you know, balance of friend groups, balance of time, balance of passion, and that I probably get a little bit heavy on the passion side, spend a bit too much time fishing at times, but passion kind of always sort of draws you, but that, having that sort of real balance and and not just getting stuck on sort of one path or one thing, just because it's healthy to have your sort of mind challenged at different times and think about things a little bit differently. So, pretty awesome, bro. Looking forward to seeing you back on the rugby field too.
Yeah, no, I am. It's exciting.
Yeah.
About that as well. So, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe we can catch up when you get after you played your first game.
Yeah,
we'll
that'd
have
be
a
cool.
yarn about.
Yeah, talk about, see if I'm fearless.
Yeah,
see how I'm going.
See how fearless you are.
Yeah. No,
see how the rehab journey went.
Yeah, no. Thanks heaps, Swings. Means
Cool,
a lot,
bro.
eh?
Cheers.
Good stuff.
Mean.